Are you dealing with student loans from acupuncture school that are more than most people's mortgage? If so, you're not alone. We at Student Loan Planner have helped probably more acupuncturists figure out their student loan balance than any other group in the country. And we've learned a couple things along the way. When you come out of acupuncture school, it's not uncommon to have 200 or 250,000 of student loan debt. This is because you go to this years-long program and then you have very high living expenses in a high cost of living area. A lot of times acupuncture schools are located in areas with very high costs because the regulations and the licensing requirements tend to be much greater in places with high density of population and cities and coastal areas where these costs are very high. So that's one reason why acupuncturists are some of the highest debt occupations that we see, especially relative to income of any out there really. The concern that I have is if you look at the acupuncturist degree and you look at the income that you can make and you look at the debt that you will leave with on average, it's not an economically viable degree, not by itself. You should not go to acupuncture school and expect that you will be paying that debt off unless you have help from family or friends that are covering the tuition, because the debt to income ratio is going to be too high. So most cases, an acupuncturist is going to have a debt to income ratio above 2 to 1. Now, once you hit that level of a debt to income ratio, it becomes very, very challenging to pay off student loan debt. From our experience, if you look at the amount that you would have to pay in the standard 10-year plan as an acupuncturist, and that amount is intimidating to pay and also live a normal adult life, then that is telling you that refinancing is really something that's probably not going to be in the cards. Now, if you think about going for loan forgiveness, what options are available to acupuncturists? The one issue that you're going to face is, as an acupuncturist, you're not going to have job opportunities that often in the not-for-profit space. You're not going to be able to set up your own not-for-profit and, certify your own credit as an employer and an employee, and somehow get access to the public service loan forgiveness program and get your loans forgiven and tax-free in 10 years. That's probably not going to happen. If you want to practice acupuncture, then what you're going to have to do is go for something either called pay-as-you-earn, which is a 20-year program, or revised pay-as-you-earn, which is a 25-year program. Now, there's a lot of nuances with this. With pay-as-you-earn, you can pay 10% of your discretionary income, which is basically 10% of your income less a deduction, and you pay that for 20 years. At the end of those 20 years, you have to pay a tax bomb, and the tax bomb is basically considered, you take the forgiven balance and you take income tax on that. You have to pay that all at once to the IRS in 20 years. That's a pretty big burden. For the revised pay-as-you-earn program, that 10% of your discretionary income is a 25-year period until you get loan forgiveness. So that revised pay-as-you-earn plan, though, has interest subsidies. The pay-as-you-earn plan does not. So you're having to choose between these two plans, and to factor in even more complexity, you can have a spouse that you have to include their income if you file on the revised pay-as-you-earn program, but on pay-as-you-earn, you can often file your taxes separately and exclude their income when you're going for loan forgiveness, so that will get you a lower payment in some cases if that spouse has no student loan debt. So you go for one of these two plans, and at the end, you have to pay this big tax bomb. You can actually prepare for that by putting a couple $100s a month away in an investment account to cover that tax bomb in 20 to 25 years. So what you're going to need to do as an acupuncturist is to get a student loan plan. You're going to have to figure this out on your own, making a bunch of mistakes. A lot of people, they'll pay an extra $500 a month and make absolutely no dent in their student loan balance. It's very inefficient. Alternatively, you can hire us. We're experts in figuring this out. It's a one-time flat fee, typically ranges from like $300 to $600 based on how much debt balance you have with what consultant you work with. So the key is, if you're an acupuncturist, go ahead and figure out how to get out of student loan debt as fast as possible so that you can get back to your passion, which is helping patients, treating patients, making people feel better. And just one last point, you can even not do acupuncture as a career if you don't want to. If you decide that, that was a huge mistake, I really wish I could take that back, we've had people go and just become teachers and go for the public service loan forgiveness program so that their loans will be forgiven tax-free in 10 years. So regardless of what path that you're on, all hope is not lost. You can definitely have a plan that will help you long-term. You just need to actually execute and make sure you don't make a lot of loan mistakes. So that's our tips for how to deal with acupuncture student loans.